should tolerate any monopolies because, that is a recipe for disaster. And I think that's a very sound conservative position to take. So if it was me, I'd break up Twitter and I'd break up Facebook. I don't know how we accomplish that, but it's the same thing.
Any collusion or any trust laws about that?
There are laws. There are some rules around some of this stuff. I don't know entirely how they work, but you are right. But, Microsoft held essentially a monopoly on I can't remember what it was. I think it had to do with their operating system and how it was working with personal computers, etc. And the government ended up stepping in and they said, this is bad, no competition. It's bad for consumers. It's bad for the country. It's bad for society. We're going to break up Microsoft somehow. And again, I'm not an expert. I don't recall how they did it, but they managed to break up Microsoft and end the Microsoft monopoly for better or for worse.
Okay, because I'm thinking back to Enbridge, what's the big American energy giant that collapsed and left all kinds of people in the lurch?
Oh, good question. Enercom, I know the one Enbridge. You're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, when they went down, did they break it up or did it go down on its own? I forget now.
I think it went down on its own, to be honest with you, if I'm not mistaken. I know the one you're talking about, but I don't recall the name of it.
I just can't think of the name either, because that would be a model to use or look at anyway. But I agree with you. I think there should be plenty of options out there where people have the ability to find competitive platforms that compete with each other for your business. It's like having one car dealership in a small town, and no other dealership within 200 miles. Well, they can pretty much charge what they want for cars because who's going to drive 200 miles to buy a new one?
Right.
There's in the old days it was, well, if I can't get a good deal here, I'll go across the street to the other guy. And wait a minute. There was always this competition that held prices in check. And when you get away from competition, you run into this same problem. And I see this as the same thing. So,
right. Without competition, you can't have a free market.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what I guess I'm trying to say. You can't have that conversation or competition without a free market. And a free market is the best defense against runaway spending or runaway prices.
Right. So in this case, you don't want the government to come in and say, well, we're not going to, or we're going to force Twitter to release the newspaper's locked account, and we're going to force Twitter on pain of being fined or whatever other penalty you want to impose. We're going to force Twitter and other social media platforms to carry these particular stories. Okay, I don't think that that's something that you want the government to do. As I said, I like the fact that the government doesn't regulate the internet, but I think the government does have to do something. And in this case, I think probably the best thing to do is to find a way to break up what is essentially a monopoly on social media, which is, Twitter for that kind of social media, and Facebook, and of course there's Instagram is out there as well, but Instagram is owned by Facebook.
Yeah, see, that's you know what? This isn't this is a conversation you can apply in a lot of different areas, where you have situations where you have a few companies that own a lot of other companies under their umbrella. So let's take life insurance as an example. You have Bob's Life Insurance, and across the street you've got Manual Life Insurance, and all of them are owned by Sun Life Insurance. So it really doesn't matter which one you go to. You're going to get roughly the same price for the same coverage, because you don't have any real competition. I'm not picking on the life insurance companies. I'm just saying as an example of not collusion, but market control. It's all about market share, and the more market share any one company has, the harder it is to find the competition you need to keep prices down.
Yeah, and again, that's really what it comes down to. I think there is a free market solution here. Somehow find a way to break up Twitter so that they don't have a monopoly, and Bob's your uncle. I guess I just don't know. But to get back to the original issue for me, apart from the fact that this is happening, what I find really quite astonishing is the blatantness of the act. To say a week before presidential election, not only are we not covering this story, which I guess would be an editorial decision if that's what you guys want to do. I mean, if you're a publisher and you want to take that position, that's you're right. But to say in this case, we don't like the story, so we're not going to allow it to be disseminated on our social media platform, when ours is the only social media platform that can that kind of dissemination can be achieved through. That to me is a real problem, and it's a real problem.
Well, was it? You can always offer an alternative. The trick is, how do you draw people to it? Well, that's a marketing problem that can be overcome. And I think trying to find a positive note in this, to quote a line by Princess Leia out of Star Wars, the harder you squeeze, the more will slip through your fingers. And I think that's ultimately what happens is when enough people get dissatisfied, they will go off and find another way to do the same thing. So let's hope that sense of things carries the day and provides another platform. And in a way, you and I are doing the same thing. We're giving people a chance to come on, either through the chat room, emails, and hopefully soon through phone calls. We'll be able to give them a chance to have their say, no matter what we think of it. You and I are not opposed to opposing opinions. What is that saying about democracy? You don't have a real democracy unless you have, I forget, you've got a quote on one of your web pages.
Yeah, democracy is meaningless without competition of ideas.
Thank you.
Without
That's
competing ideas.
Yes. So we're not afraid of that. As a matter of fact, we encourage it. So in a way, we're kind of doing the same thing in a small way at the moment. Hopefully that'll grow as people become more dissatisfied with mainstream outlets for news. It's not just Twitter and Facebook that are a problem. It's also the different news. Look at CBC. I mean, oh my God, it's enough to drive you mad trying to listen to that station. And then you've got, the NPR in the States. You've got all the lettered news agencies. After a while, a best example is look what happened to the NFL during the whole take a knee thing. Their ratings fell through the floor. Same thing with the NBA. Their ratings fell through the floor. People speak with their feet and their wallet. And if they don't like it, they will go someplace else and spend their advertising dollars, because ultimately people like Zuckerberg make a living taking money out of your pocket one way or another. And I'm not against that. That's just free market. But at the same time, if your product becomes so diluted or so tainted one way that you really don't have an alternative, you just throw up your hands and say, I'm going someplace else. So let's hope that carries the day.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming up to the top of the hour, and that means we are going to be taking another break. We do these breaks every half hour. If you're listening to the live show, we will be back in a few minutes, so don't go away. And if you're listening to the podcast, that will be the end of segment 2. And for segment 3 will be posted on the internet on Monday morning. So we hope you'll catch us then. In the meantime, as I said, if you're listening to the live show, stay with us and we'll be back in a few minutes here on the Nick and Joe Show on ThinkRadio.ca.